may bring the jury. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State called Robert Downey.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please state your first and last name, spell your last name loud and clearly.
First name Robert, last name Downey. D-O-W-N-E-Y.
Morning, Mr. Downey.
Good morning.
Could you tell the jury where you currently work
I'm currently employed with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
and how long have you been with SLED?
I've been with SLED since April of 2007.
And prior to joining SLED, did you have any other prior law enforcement experience?
I began my career in 2003 with the Kershaw County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff. I worked there for 1 year, and then I gained employment with the South Carolina House Representative Sergeant at Arms Office in 2004, and went to SLED in 2007.
And what is your current duty assignment at SLED?
Currently, I'm assigned to the Vice Unit, and particularly the narcotics investigation. I'm a canine handler for the narcotics unit, assigned to the parcel interdiction unit.
And how long have you been working in capacity as a canine handler?
5 years.
And could you tell the jury briefly what that role entails?
I'm the sole handler of Belgian Malinois narcotics detection canine. The primary handler, not the trainer, but the primary handler, and assigned to the parcel interdiction unit for parcel interdiction purposes.
So essentially you have a drug bill.
Correct.
And can you tell them what part, you said parcel interdiction, what is that?
Parcel interdiction, we intercept quantities of illegal narcotics coming into the state through the various mail services, UPS, FedEx, U.S. Postal Service, coming in that way.
And you told us what kind of dog it was. What's the dog's name?
The dog's name is Nadia.
And could you tell the jury what type of certifications you and Nadia have in the field of narcotics investigations, and you specifically in canine handling?
We are certified annually through a company called Custom Canine Unlimited. We train every day, every week, minimum 4 hours a week, and certify annually with this company.
And what types of drugs has your dog been trained to detect?
She is certified in heroin, methamphetamine, marijuana, and cocaine.
And on Tuesday, April the 7th, 2015, did you have the opportunity to come into contact with a Mercedes-Benz that's related to the incident we're there for?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall where you came into contact with that vehicle?
I was at the North Charleston PD impound garage, I believe, at 2556 5th Street in North Charleston, South Carolina.
And I'm going to show you what's already in evidence as State's Exhibits 148 and 149. Take a look at those pictures. And regarding States 148 as well as 149, is that the vehicle that you had the opportunity to come into contact with on that date?
Yes, it is.
And just so we're clear, this is the incident scene, this is not where you did your search, is that?
That's correct.
And when you arrived at the North Charleston PD warehouse, was anyone else from SLED present?
I met Special Agent Barfield and Special Agent Harley. I actually met them somewhere outside of that location because I couldn't quite find it, and they met me, and then I followed them to that location.
And when you got there, the vehicle, was it inside the warehouse?
It was.
And did you and your dog have an opportunity to conduct a search of the vehicle that day?
We conducted a canine sniff of that vehicle, yes, sir.
And can you describe for the jury what that means and what y'all did that day?
Initially, when excuse me, when I encounter a vehicle, I initially do a safety check of the vehicle to make sure there's nothing inside or outside, anything sharp, hazardous to the dog, something the dog could get cut on, hung up on, nothing the dog's going to ingest, any kind of chemicals or food or old food or just anything that would be detrimental to the dog. After doing that, I retrieved the dog from my truck, from my vehicle. I then conducted a sniff of the outside of the vehicle. I began, let me refer to my notes, at the front passenger side bumper of the vehicle and worked in a counterclockwise direction around the outside of the vehicle, at times presenting different points on the vehicle that I would want her to concentrate on, all the way around the vehicle, and I finished at the front driver's side bumper of the vehicle.
So, just so I'm clear, you're walking your dog around the entire outside of the car.
That's correct.
And while you're doing this, what are you looking for? What gives you an indication that your dog has or has not?
I'm looking for any changes in behavior she may display, specifically changes in behavior from her normal behavior as she's walking around the vehicle. Specifically with my dog, she tends to work rather quickly. So as she would pass, if she would pass a narcotic odor that got her attention, she would quickly snap her head back towards that area and concentrate further on it. Also, and particularly my dog, her breathing, you can notice a change in her breathing pattern. As she's sniffing, it's it's a rapid breathing pattern, but as she goes into what we call goes into odor, finds narcotic odor, she will slow down and take deeper breaths, and you can really hear her take in, really clear nasal passage and take in odor. Also, a lot of times when she gets close to source, her tail will go up. Just those are three of the main behaviors that I look for.
And on that day during the dog's exterior sniff of the vehicle, did you notice any such behavioral changes or alerts?
I did not.
And what does that indicate to you?
In my opinion, well, that indicated to me that she did not detect any narcotics odor on the outside of the vehicle.
And after performing that search of the exterior of the vehicle, did you give her the opportunity to search the inside of the vehicle?
I did. I allowed her to go in through the driver's side door, and once inside, allowed her to conduct a sniff of the interior of the vehicle, watching her, make sure she covered all the spaces and areas inside the vehicle, to include the front and the back seat.
And during the course of the interior sniff of the vehicle, did she alert in any way to the presence of the odor of narcotics?
She did not.
So during the course of your search, interior and outside the car, you or your dog did not locate any narcotics?
My dog did not display any alerts to the presence of the odor of narcotics inside or outside the vehicle.
And did you personally observe any narcotics inside the vehicle?
I did not.
Agent Downey, would your dog be able to, there were no odors detected that day. Is there a time frame for how far back the dog would be able to detect?
I mean, it's hard to say. There's a lot of variables would go into that, anywhere from air currents, the amount of narcotics you're talking about, where it was, the substrate it was laying on, humidity. It is possible, but as far as giving a time frame of how long ago that it could still detect the odor, there's no way of saying.
But there were no odors or alerts that night?
Not that I observed.
Thank you. Please answer the question.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Agent Jones.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
We have met. I'm Andy Slager. I represent the officer.
Very nice to meet you, sir.
Nadia,
Nadia.
how's she doing?
Sir?
How's she doing?
She's doing good. She's doing really good.
And you keep her in sled headquarters?
I keep her at my house.
Is she here with you today?
She is not. She got the day off.
So, Nadia, I guess the canine handlers have different purposes. Some are for narcotics. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So Nadia was a narcotic.
Narcotic detection canine. Yes, sir.
detection, any type of narcotic, right?
Heroin, methamphetamine, marijuana, and cocaine.
So most narcotics, not all narcotics.
Those 4 narcotics that I named, those 4 illegal narcotics that I just named.
But there are other types of illegal drugs. Is that correct?
I suppose so.
And when Nadia came down to Charleston at the warehouse, that was a few days after the incident, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in that warehouse, how many vehicles do you recall were in there?
I do not recall. The only one that I do recall is the one that we conducted a sniff on.
It's a large area, the warehouse,
It is a fairly large facility.
and there are other vehicles
Not that I can recall.
And there would be an inventory at some place about what other vehicles were located in that warehouse?
I'm sorry, say again, sir?
Well, there would be an inventory, of course, of what was in that warehouse.
I can't speak to that. Like, again, that was the Charleston PD impound facility, so I don't have anything to do with that.
So, no response to any of the contents of the warehouse where Nadia went by?
No, sir, not that I observed.
So, when you left there, the dog went around the car and inside the car, correct?
Yes, sir.
And was anything taken out of the car before the dog had an opportunity to go in the car?
Was anything taken out of the vehicle by me or by other people?
By anyone, at best you know.
The only thing that I can speak to of is I think I took out I want to say maybe a bag of food that was in there. And I can't remember what exactly it was, but I think I removed it to keep the dog from ingesting it because I don't know how long it had been there and I didn't want her getting sick.
So did Nadia respond to the meat that was in the car?
No, sir. Maybe that was what I took out of it. That may have been what it was.
So most dogs, right, would respond to they smell beef or they smell spare ribs or whatever it would be.
Not the way she responds to narcotic odors.
Did she respond at all?
To
Anything?
She did not display any changes of behavior to the odor of narcotics. No, sir.
But the odor of meat?
Not that I noticed. I don't know how she responds to the odor of meat because I don't train on the odor of meat. She doesn't display a change in behavior to food odors.
She didn't get excited at home and you cook a barbecue or cook a meat or anything like that?
To be honest with you, sir, she's never been around me when I'm cooking barbecue. She stays way out from the house. She's a little wild.
So, but she's pretty good at what she does.
She's very good at what she does, yes, sir.
So when you left the warehouse, did Agent Harley, I forget the other agent's name?
Barfield.
Harley.
Yes, sir.
Did they take you over to Craig Road?
I'm sorry, say
Did
again?
they take you over to Craig Road?
No, they did not.
So Nadia didn't have an opportunity to go over and look at the incident center where this took place.
I was not asked to go there, no, sir.
And Nadia didn't walk up Craig Street sniffing along the grass on the side of Craig Street.
I was not asked to go there, no, sir.
Nadia didn't walk down Yellow Brick Road and sniff the grass and sniff the high grass next to the fence.
No, sir, I was not asked to go there.
Well, that's where this incident took place. Correct?
To be honest with you, sir, I'm not very familiar with the case. I was just asked to respond that day, and meet with Agent Barfield and Agent Harley, and they showed me what they would like done.
Thank you and best wishes to Nadia.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me excuse
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Your next witness.
Chekhov Dr. Tormos.
Let's stand for a moment. Stand right there, man. All right.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give the court, the jury, and the trial of this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? please state your first and last name and spell your last name clearly to the microphone.
My name is Lee Marie Tormos, Tormos.
Good afternoon, Dr. Tormos.
Hi.
Could you tell the jury where you currently work and what you do?
I am a forensic pathologist at the Medical University of South Carolina.
And how long have you been doing that at the medical university?
At the Medical University, I have been attending since 2011.
And are you a licensed physician in the state of South Carolina?
Yes, I am.
And could you tell the jury a little bit about where you received your medical training?
Sure. I received my undergrad training at the University of Puerto Rico, followed by my medical training also at the University of Puerto Rico. I then continued my specialty training in anatomic and clinical pathology at the Medical University of Puerto Rico, worked in Puerto Rico as a medical examiner for 2 years and in private practice for 1 year before moving to the States and training at MUSC for my subspecialty in forensic pathology, and I've been here ever since.
And could you tell us a little bit about your professional experience in the field of forensic pathology?
I have performed over 1,000 autopsies and testified at least 40 times. Anything else?
And could you tell us what the field of forensic pathology consists of?
Okay. The field of forensic pathology is a subspecialty field that deals with the examination of the body to determine the cause and manner of death. Namely, we perform autopsies, which mean an external and internal examination of the body using surgical tools to determine how an injury or disease led to the death of an individual.
And are you board certified in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, I am.
And what are the requirements for such a board certification?
For board certification in forensic pathology, you must also be board certified at least in anatomic pathology. I am board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology and forensic pathology. In order to be board certified, you have to have completed a medical training in an accredited university and be licensed in the United States.
And is that a national certification?
It is a national certification,
And I believe you already said you testified as an expert in forensic pathology approximately 40 times.
at least.
And which courts have you done that in?
Numerous across the state, Charleston, Beaufort, Jasper, several more.
And, Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer Dr. Tormos as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Says the defense.
Well qualified.
He's admitted in the field of forensic pathology.
Thank you. Dr. Tormos, while affiliated with the Medical University, did you have the opportunity to perform an autopsy on Walter Scott on April 5th, 2015?
Yes, I did.
And in the course of that, did you also prepare reports detailing your findings?
Yes, I did.
And in the course of that, were photographs also taken of Mr. Scott during this process?
Yes, they were.
And could you tell the jury what your findings were as far as related to the age, height, and weight of Mr. Scott?
Mr. Scott is a 50-year-old male. He is approximately 5'9" and weighed approximately 200 pounds, which makes him obese for his age, height, and weight.
And you indicated that photographs were taken during the course of the autopsy. I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibits 160 up to including 179, as well as State's Exhibit 207. You can take the time you need to look through those pictures, and once you've done that, I'll ask you some questions.
207. Okay, yes. Mhm.
You had an opportunity to review all of those exhibits,
Yes,
and do those exhibits fairly accurately depict the condition of Mr. Scott as you observed it during the course of your autopsy on that date?
yes, they do.
Your Honor, this time the state would offer those exhibits in evidence.
Any objection? They're admitted without objection.
Now, Dr. Tormos, as part of your autopsy, I believe you indicated you performed an external and internal examination.
That is correct.
I'd like to start with your external examination. What evidence of recent injury did you find on Mr. Scott?
Can you rephrase the question?
During the course of your examination of Mr. Scott's body,
Mhm.
did you discover any evidence of any recent injuries?
Yes, yes.
Could you tell us what those were?
Okay. I am going to be describing several gunshot wounds to the body and also additional injuries. Now, I will be describing the gunshot wounds to the body from top to bottom, but this is not to be determined to be the order in which they were sustained. I cannot tell which one came first, so I will be describing them top to bottom on the body. Okay. The first injury that I found was a graze wound to the right ear helix. Now, this is the top of the ear, right here, and it is strictly a superficial wound. By the wound characteristics, I'm able to determine that the trajectory of the bullet is going forward.
Dr. Holmes, if I could interrupt you just for a second. I'm going to put State Exhibit 160 up on the screen there so the jury can
What?
see what you're describing.
And 161.
And 160. Start with 163. You have this fancy high-tech pointer, if I could get you to
Yes.
point for the jury what you're talking about.
These are photographs that were taken by me at the time of the autopsy. First photograph depicts a lateral view. This is the right side of his face. And as you can see right here, this is the ear helix. And at the top of the helix, you have an abrasion that is consistent with a graze wound from a bullet. The wound characteristics, if I could have Exhibit 161. The wound characteristics lead me to believe that this is a graze from back to front.
And what characteristics of that indicate to you that is the path of the bullet that caused that?
When the bullet is traveling tangential or superficially on the body, it tends to create lacerations moving away from the position which the body is coming from, the bullet is coming from. So you can see those lacerations radiating outward and forward, which leads me to believe that the bullet is traveling forward.
And in examining gunshot wounds, can you tell the jury what soot or stippling, the presence of or the absence of, would or would not indicate for you?
Okay. When a bullet comes out of a weapon, something other than just the bullet comes out. You have soot, which is burn deposits, and you also have what creates stippling, which is actually burning gunpowder pieces. If the muzzle of the weapon is very close to the body surface, you may see the deposition of soot or stippling on the skin, which are little burn marks created by the burning gunpowder. In this case, you cannot see soot or stippling, which tells me that this is a distant or indeterminate range, and that is defined as probably greater than 3 feet away. But whether it's 3 feet or 30 feet, I cannot tell the difference. I can only tell you that the muzzle of the weapon was at least 3 feet or more away.
So you said that would be distant or indeterminate. What are the other types of categories you would
You,
classify?
you could have a contact wound in which you would see a muzzle imprint on the skin or not, abundant soot, burn marks, and you could have an intermediate range where you would see the gunpowder stippling or the burn marks on the skin, but not necessarily any soot.
So would it be fair to say that a contact wound is the muzzle of the weapon actually coming in contact?
Contact or closed, yes.
And then the close would be inside 3 feet?
Yes, the intermediate range would be 3 feet, inside 3 feet, yes.
And so distant would
Distant would be more than 3 feet or so away.
And was there any evidence of soot or stippling around this one?
There is no evidence of soot or stippling on this wound or any other wound.
And while we're on the topic of soot and stippling, does clothing have any effect on your ability to detect those things?
Yes, clothing is an intermediate object, and we would have to examine the clothing for the presence of soot or stippling, as it may deposit on the clothing and not necessarily on the skin.
And in this instance, was Mr. Scott's clothing available to you during the autopsy?
It was.
And did you conduct any such examination on his shirt or pants to determine the presence of soot or stippling?
We did a naked eye examination of all the clothing that was on the body, and we did not find any evidence of soot.
Is there anything else you would like to tell the jury about this wound before we move on to the next gunshot wound?
No.
If I could direct you to, I believe the next one in your report is a gunshot wound to the posterior right shoulder. Is that correct?
Yes.
And before you start talking about that, we'll put State's Exhibit 162 on the screen. And if you could, just describe for the jury what is depicted in this photo.
Yes. This is the second injury that I found. This is an entrance gunshot wound to the back of the right shoulder. It goes through the skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscles. It grazes the clavicle, the collarbone, before coming out the front. It does not hit any major structures. It is only skin and muscle mostly.
And was there any evidence of any soot or stippling on that?
There is no evidence of soot or stippling.
And were you able to determine a trajectory of that gunshot, the path of that bullet?
The trajectory of the bullet is mainly back to front.
And can you tell the jury how you determined that trajectory and what that appears to be a stick or something?
Yes, that is a metal probe just showing the continuity of the injury across the shoulder. The way we determine the trajectories is that we put the body in what we call in medicine anatomic position. Anatomic position is someone standing straight up with the palms of their hands facing forward, like this. And every time that I describe a trajectory through the body, I will be assuming that the person is standing up with their feet forward, looking up straight with the palms of their hands forward.
And so when you say posterior right shoulder, that just means the back.
The back of the right shoulder, yes.
And the two wounds there, can you describe for the jury what the difference is between an entrance wound and an exit wound, as well as how you determine which is which?
Okay. An entrance wound here is rounder, and you will see usually an abrasion margin because the bullet, when it leaves the weapon, it tends to rotate in the air, much like a football rotates. In that case, you will see an abrasion on the skin margin and relatively clean margins, whereas the bullet loses its rotation and comes out in usually irregular wounds on the anterior aspect of the body. In this case, you can see the irregularity. The bullet by then has deformed. It has skipped against the clavicle, against the collarbone, so it became more deformed, and it now has a yaw in the air. It is now tumbling in the air, and as such, exit wounds tend to be lacerated wounds, irregular wounds. And those are some of the basic characteristics we use to determine the trajectory of a bullet.
And in addition to the trajectory determination that it was a back to front wound, were there any findings as to whether it was left or right, up or down?
Yes, the trajectory is forward, slightly to the left, and very slightly upward. So you can see a very slight turn to the left, and obviously forward as it skips on the clavicle and exits the body upward.
And is there anything else that you would like to tell the jury about that photograph, or can we move on to the next one?
We can go to the next one.
Publish States Exhibit 163. And the state defense agrees to kind of crop this from the photograph a little bit, but does that picture still fairly accurately depict the wounds that you observed that day?
Yes, it does.
And if you could describe the injuries that are depicted on that photograph for the jury, specifically to the third gunshot.
Okay. Actually, in this particular picture, you can see all 4 gunshot wounds to the torso. So this is the one that I just described to the back of the right shoulder. This is the one that I described to the back of the right chest. This is the one I described to the flank. And this is the one I described to the buttock. Okay? The second one I'm going to describe is the one to the chest. You can also see that it has a relatively round margins, a little abrasion around it, and that bullet actually penetrates the body and is recovered from inside the body.
And was there any soot or stippling present around that wound?
There is no soot or stippling around that wound.
And could you describe in some more detail for the jury the pathway of the bullet and the damage that it caused?
Yes. The bullet entered the skin and subcutaneous tissue, and it went through the muscles in between the ribs at the level of the 9th intercostal space. It goes through the lower lobe of the right lung. It enters the pericardial sac, the sac where the heart is contained. It went through the right atrium, the septum, and the right ventricle of the heart. It enters the anterior, it exits the sac in the anterior aspect of the sac, and the jacket is retained in the sac around the heart, whereas the lead core of the bullet continues a little bit further forward and actually exits the chest cavity through the muscles of the 4th intercostal space and is recovered beneath the left nipple.
And would this be considered a fatal wound?
This would be considered a fatal wound, yes.
And why is it?
We need an intact heart to be able to beat, and his perforations to his heart made him bleed out internally into the chest cavities.
And when someone sustains a gunshot wound such as this, how long would you expect them
Well, to determine, but I would not expect them to live more than a few minutes.
to recover the bullet jacket and the core associated with it?
Yes.
If I could show you State's Exhibit 164.
Yes.
And could you describe what's depicted here for the jury?
Okay, this is a frontal view radiograph of the body at the time of the autopsy. We also do radiographs to help us identify the presence of trach. You can see here the ribs, you can see the spine in the middle, and you can see that this is the left side of the chest. This is the jacket that was recovered from the sac around the heart, the pericardial sac. You can see the heart silhouette as well. And you can see this is the core that was recovered from under the left nipple. Also, this is a separate bullet that I will be describing in a minute that is associated to the right flank at entrance shot.
And if I could also show you State's Exhibit 165. Can you tell us what that is?
This is the jacket of the projectile. This is the jacket that we recovered from the pericardial sac.
And pericardial sac is?
The sac that contains the heart.
And State's Exhibit 166.
This is the lead cord that belongs to that jacket that continued a few inches forward and was recovered from the left chest near the nipple.
And so what is the trajectory of this gunshot?
The trajectory of the chest entrance wound is forward to the left and very slightly upward.
And the entrance wound is located on the back.
On the back right, and the bullet travels diagonally across the chest, hitting the right lung and the heart before coming to rest and under the left nipple.
So in addition to being a back to front shot, does it also travel in the direction left and right, or up or down?
Yes, again, forward to the left and very slightly upward.
And we can move on to, go back to State Exhibit 163 briefly. And you identified, could you describe for the jury what the gunshot wound, what you categorize as the gunshot wound to the right flank?
This is the gunshot wound to the right flank, right here. That gunshot wound also enters the body, and it is associated to the projectile that I introduced a few minutes ago that was in the abdomen.
And was there any stippling or soot or stippling present? on
There
that?
is no soot or stippling associated to the wound.
And if you could tell the jury what the pathway that bullet was and what damage was inflicted?
Yes, that pathway is through the skin and subcutaneous tissues. It fractures the posterior 11th rib, and it lacerates the diaphragm, because where it's coming in is right where the diaphragm, which is our breathing muscle, is attached to the back of the ribs. So it goes through the skin, subcutaneous tissues, through the 11th rib and the diaphragm. It goes through the liver, and after perforating the liver, it travels to the subcutaneous tissues right at the center of the upper abdomen, where it is recovered.
And on State's Exhibit 167,
That is the projectile that was recovered under the skin of the abdomen near the midline.
and then I believe the fifth gunshot wound that you indicated was a gunshot wound to the back right buttock. Can you put up State's Exhibit 163?
This is the gunshot wound to the right buttock. That bullet travels forward, and it goes through the skin, subcutaneous tissues, and the muscle only. There is no soot or stippling associated to it.
And would you say that there were any significant injuries associated with this gunshot wound?
No, this only involves skin, subcutaneous tissue, and muscle.
And we categorize something as significant. It's causing an injury, but it's not a fatal.
It's causing an injury, but it's not involving any critical structure that would be potentially fatal.
And on State's Exhibit 168, can you describe for the jury what's depicted in that?
This is the projectile that was recovered from the buttock. Again, we are taking a three-dimensional person and putting it in a two-dimensional image. This is actually right anterior, near the hip on the anterior aspect. So the bullet actually travels on the outside of the buttock through the muscle and is recovered under the skin of the anterior right hip.
And State's Exhibit 170.
This is a deformed projectile that was recovered from the anterior right hip.
Dr. Torres, if I could have you come down just so we can go through the trajectories of each of those wounds again. It's maybe a little difficult to figure it out in the 2D picture as opposed to actually showing the jury where it is. Immediately before you.
I don't know. Let's see.
So regarding the wound to the right ear of Mr. Scott, can you show the jury where the direction of travel and where that injury would have been?
Yes, the direction of travel is back to front on the right ear, just scraping the top of the ear helix.
And regarding the gunshot wound to the back of the right shoulder?
Yes. You could turn a little bit more so they can see. Yeah. The gunshot wound would be about here on the right shoulder, and it's traveling very slightly to the left and upward. It skips the top of the clavicle and it exits right here.
It's a really big,
Right here.
back to front.
Back to front and right through the shoulder muscle.
And regarding the gunshot wound to the back of the right chest, where is that?
This time, the back of the right chest would be right around here, and it is traveling in a direction that is to the left and slightly upward, and it goes through the right lung, it goes through the heart in the middle, and then it ends up beneath the left middle. So you can draw an imaginary line between here and the left middle.
And the gunshot wound to the right flank.
To the right flank, again, it would be here, the entrance wound to the right flank, and it goes through the liver, and it ends up in the epigastric area, if you could point to here. So it ends up right
The
here.
gunshot wound to the back, it would be going this before it goes that way.
The bullet goes from and to the left. Yes.
And the gunshot wound to the right buttock, that travels in the same direction back to front as well.
That travels mostly back to front. So that one is one that enters the right buttock and is recovered.
Doctor, the trajectories we described of the distant gunshot wounds all going back to front, is that consistent with someone that would be running away?
That would be consistent, yes.
Now, in the course of your examination, in addition to the gunshot wounds that you have described for us, were you also able to locate any taser barbs or things like that as part of your autopsy?
Yes, there was a taser barb, a single taser barb embedded on the left flank.
And I'll show you up there, States Exhibit 171. Maybe, is it depicted on there? I think there's a close-up on 172. If you can just show it there, then we'll move to 172.
This one is fine. Here, you have a panoramic view, and you can clearly see the taser barb is embedded on the left flank skin.
And on 172,
This is a close-up picture of the taser barb embedded in the skin. The barb point, if you've never seen it, it has a little harpoon tip, so that once it goes in, it gets caught in the subcutaneous tissue, and so it's being held by that tip. And you can see that semicircular aberration where this would have gone all the way in, and this hilt, if you want to call it that, would have struck the skin right there and created that abrasion. I did not find another puncture wound to indicate a second.
and in addition to the gunshot wound and taser barb injury, did you observe any other injuries to Mr. Scott?
Yes. if you want to. Again, I am going to be describing the injuries from top to bottom. This does not mean that this is the order in which they were sustained. Okay? And the head, which,
If you find that injury so we can publish what you're talking about.
okay,
Is it States Exhibit 1673?
Yes.
Injury to the cheek?
yes. In the head, I found a 1.5 by 1 inch abraded contusion over the left cheekbone.
If you could, again,
Mhm.
point to where that abraded contusion is, and also tell the jury what that means.
Yeah. The abraded contusion is this over the cheekbone, and again, abraded means scraped on the surface, and contusion means a bruise. So he has a bruised cheek that the skin on the surface has been abraded or scraped. You can see that for yourself right here, overlying the left cheekbone.
And what could possibly cause abraded contusion, such as the one depicted in that photograph?
Any number of things can cause an abraded contusion, anything from a strike with an object or a hand, or a fall forward on the floor against that cheek. Anything that causes the cheek to impact another object with sufficient force to cause a bruise.
So either being struck in the cheek or with falling onto a road cause that, could possibly cause that as well?
Yes, those scenarios would both cause an injury similar to this one.
And did you also observe any injury to the back, further injuries other than the gunshot wounds to the back of Mr. Scott?
When we reflected the scalp during the course of the examination, I also found a bruise on the left side of the head. Again, it was not observed externally, it was only observed when we reflected the scalp. On the torso, which is the front and back of the trunk, I found little dot-like abrasions on the right side of the back, a 1/4 inch linear abrasion on the left upper back, and another 1/4 inch abrasion at the mid-back, right where the vertebrae become very prominent, and it's overlying the prominence of the bone at the midline.
And if I can show you States Exhibit 171. Does that depict the injuries, abrasions you were just describing in the back, Mr. Scott?
Yes, the resolution does not allow me to show you the little punctate or dot-like abrasions on the back, but they were all to the right side. Here you have the 1/4 inch abrasion, a really teeny tiny abrasion right here overlying the vertebral prominences, the bony prominences. And the other 1/4 inch abrasion is to the left upper back. And I don't know if we have enough resolution. Right there. To that one.
And are you able to give any opinion as to the likely cause of those types of injuries, or possible cause of those types of injuries?
No.
And I'm going to show you States Exhibit 174. And can you describe what is depicted in that photograph?
Absolutely. Okay. Going again top to bottom, you're seeing the exit wound on the anterior aspect of the right shoulder. This bruise is actually due to the core of the projectile that entered the right chest as it struck the skin from the inside and did a bruise right here. This is where we found the bruise under the projectile or the bullet under the left nipple. And this area right here that looks like the other bruise, this is where the other projectile ended up, the one that entered the flank. And this is where we recovered it right under the skin.
And so the wound around the nipple as well as the one to the diaphragm area,
Itself, yes, from the inside.
so bullets going from the back, into the back to the front, leave those bruises when they come to rest on the front.
Yes, yes.
And if we could briefly on that picture, the photograph, the exit wound on the shoulder, if you're initially looking at that without having a close examination of it, just on a quick visual look at it, could that appear to be an entrance wound as opposed to an exit wound?
It would have to be an irregular, a non-standard entrance wound. The wound characteristics are more consistent with an exit wound.
So your finding is that, I understand that your finding is that it is an exit wound. I'm just saying, someone without that medical training, it just looks like a gunshot wound at first.
Yes,
Okay, you have to do the closer examination.
And you have to look at everything together. And yes, that someone with no medical training would just see a defect. But with no medical training, it could easily be misinterpreted. In fact, even with medical training, it can be misinterpreted.
And regarding Mr. Scott's left arm and left hand, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 175 first. And if you can just describe for the jury any injuries that you observed or depicted in that photograph.
So this group of abrasions measure approximately 1.5 by 1 inch. This is the only finding in that picture.
And State's Exhibit 176.
And here you have a bruise on the wrist and a rectangular abrasion on the left wrist, as well as numerous abrasions or scrapes on the hand and on the knuckles.
And State's Exhibit 177.
I apologize for the blurry picture of the hand, but here you have additional abrasions on the surface of the fingers.
I believe in your report you described that as an abrasion with vital reaction.
Yes, vital reaction means that there was bleeding. So at the time that that injury was sustained, there was some bleeding from that wound, and I was able to document that.
Does that give you an indication that it was a fresh or recent injury?
It was an injury that was sustained prior to his demise.
And on State's Exhibit 178.
These are abrasions or scrapes to the elbow.
And State's Exhibit 179.
Okay. These are the injuries to the right hand. You can see abrasions on the knuckles, and I know it's hard to discern, but there is also an abrasion with creating a little skin tag right on the top part of the thumb. Right there you can see it, at least the silhouette of it on the thumb area.
And are the abrasions that you've described on Mr. Scott's hands and elbows consistent with standing or struggle on an asphalt surface?
It's consistent with that, yes.
And you indicated earlier that Mr. Scott's clothing was available to you. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 207. picture depict the shoes, socks, and pants that Mr. Scott was still wearing at the time of your autopsy?
Yes, they do.
And was there blood on Mr. Scott's pants? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
And in addition to the pants, shirts or shirts when you conducted your autopsy?
He was wearing a previously cut T-shirt.
Do you recall what did your report or the diagrams indicate what color T-shirt that was?
He was wearing a green T-shirt that was extensively bloodstained.
And you indicated that, was he also wearing an undershirt?
Give me a second. A previously cut white tank top undershirt.
So the green T-shirt and the white undershirt had been cut prior to him being brought to you for autopsy.
Yes, they were.
Is that consistent with people with shirts that are cut off for treatment?
Yes, they are.
And you had the opportunity to examine those shirts. And were the holes that were located, or did you locate any holes in the clothing that were consistent with the gunshot wounds that you found during the course of your autopsy?
Most defects on the body were on the clothing were consistent with the defects on the body.
Did you note any damage to the clothing that did not correspond to any gunshot wound?
Yes.
And what were those defects?
So there were two small perforations on the anterior aspect of the left pants leg, and they were overlying the left pocket. These fabric perforations did not correspond with perforations on the body. There was also a fabric tear at the margin of the left pants pocket, and that also did not correspond with defects on the body.
You indicated during the course of your testimony that some evidence was recovered, bullets, projectiles, and such. Were those items collected to be turned over to law enforcement?
Yes, they were.
I'm going to show you a few of these items. Show you what has been marked for identification as States Exhibits 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43. Starting with States Exhibit 39, you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to give you 40, 41, and 42 at the same time.
Do you want me to list them?
Do you recognize each of those items?
Yes, I do.
And are those the bullets that were recovered from Mr. Scott during the course of the autopsy?
These were the projectiles that were recovered from Mr. Scott during the course of the autopsy.
And I'm going to show you also States Exhibit 43. tell us what that is?
This is what is called a blood spot or a blood standard. We put dried drops of blood on filter paper, and they can be used for DNA testing if necessary.
And that was done through the course of this autopsy?
This is done during the course of every autopsy.
And State's Exhibits 44 and 45 as well?
Yes, these are fingernail clippings that are taken during the course of every autopsy.
And State's Exhibit 57.
Mhm.
You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is the taser barb that was recovered from the left flank of the body.
And those items, State's Exhibit 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, and 57, those items turned over to Don Claycomb with the State Law Enforcement Division.
Yes, they were.
You recall when that was?
Immediately at the conclusion of the autopsy at 1:40 p.m. on April 5th.
And when you package those items, the bullets, when you give those to Ms. Claycomb or Agent Claycomb, are they packaged?
They are packaged.
And after they're packaged, are they tampered with, were they tampered with or altered in your presence prior to you giving them to Ms. Clayton?
No. One more.
In addition to the blood standard, the blood spot part, do you also take a blood sample to be used for toxicology examination?
Yes, we do.
And can you tell us where the blood's taken from and just a little bit about that process?
Yes. The blood for toxicology is taken from the vessels in the legs, usually near the groin area, in order to be able to more easily interpret the findings.
And I'm aware that you're not a toxicologist, but can you tell us as part of your autopsy report what the findings were for the toxicology screen on Mr. Scott?
The analysis of the peripheral blood that we sent to a separate lab came back positive for cocaine, cocaethylene, and benzoyl ecgonine, which is a cocaine metabolite. Cocaethylene is a cocaine metabolite that is formed when cocaine and alcohol are in the bloodstream at the same time.
And the cocaethylene being present indicates that at some point there was ethanol present in Mr. Scott's system, correct?
Yes.
But the screen that is a part of your report shows it's negative for ethanol, is that correct?
Yes, there was no alcohol in the blood at the time that we tested it.
Are you able to give any opinion as to when the ethanol or cocaine would have been ingested?
No, I would defer that to the toxicologist.
Tormos, have you had the opportunity to view the video of the shooting in this case?
Yes, I have.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification only as State's Exhibit 239. Have you had an opportunity to see that picture before today?
Yes, I have.
And is what is depicted in that picture consistent with your findings regarding the location of the entrance wounds on the back of Mr. Scott, the trajectory of those gunshot wounds, as well as what's depicted on the video of him going away from Mr. Slager at the time his injury was inflicted?
Yes, it is.
It's consistent.
It is consistent.
Dr. Tormos, based upon the findings that you made during the course of your autopsy, as well as the information you received regarding Mr. Scott, as well as the shooting, do you have any opinion based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to the cause of Mr. Scott's death?
I determined the cause of death to be gunshot wounds to the torso.
And of those multiple gunshot wounds to the torso, were you able to categorize or give an opinion as to which one was the major or fatal wound?
The most fatal wound was the gunshot wound to the back of the right chest,
And that's the one that goes through the back and
into the lung, through the heart, and is recovered under the nipple.
obviously that the injuries you described in that fatal wound, the other wounds that you observed, would you consider those to be contributory in any way to the death of Mr. Scott?
The wound to the right flank would be contributory as it goes through the liver, which is also a major organ.
Thank you, Dr. Horn. Please answer any questions, Mr. Slager.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break now for lunch, and we'll start back around 2:30. Please do not discuss the case. Have a good lunch. Doctor, please do not discuss your testimony with anyone during lunch, and we will see you back around 2:30.
Thank you.
And we'll be in recess.